Hi, my name is Christy Buchanan, and I'm doing a study on the Testament of Solomon, which is usually accompanied by the Greater and Lesser Keys, the PDF that I downloaded, both PDFs that I downloaded on it, both versions, they came with the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon. And so my first or the last episode that I did was about the translator, of course, and about the author, which is it's attributed to Solomon. It's actually the oldest known manuscript attributed to Solomon. And we were talking about how he prayed to God for a confrontation and domination over a demon that was plaguing his favorite child, which was one of the chief artificer's children, boys. And his name was Ornias, or not the boys, but the demon's name was Ornias. They never mentioned the boy's name. And it goes on. We stopped at verse 10, I believe. And we stopped at when Ornias said that he was the offspring of the archangel Uriel, and we kind of went through the contradictions of that. We went through the Book of Enoch, and my personal opinion on it. So let's pick up right where we left off, verse 11. I, Solomon, having heard the name of the archangel, prayed and glorified God, the Lord of heaven and earth. And I sealed the demon and set him to work at stone cutting, so that he might cut the stones in the temple, which lying upon the shore had been brought by the sea of Arabia. But he, fearful of the iron, continued and said to me, I pray thee, King Solomon, let me go free, and I will bring you all the demons. And as he was not willing to be subject to me, I prayed the archangel Uriel to come and succor me. And I forthwith beheld the archangel Uriel coming down to me from the heavens. All right, the breakdown. Solomon states that as soon as he heard Uriel's name, he prayed and glorified his Lord. He made the Lord of Spirits number one in everything, everywhere, and he always followed God with the adjective of heaven and earth. Solomon took the ring and sealed the demon and set him to work. The statement about the stones lying on the seashore waiting to be cut so they could be placed in the temple confirms the detailed account in 1 Kings chapter 5. And again, the Quran backs both these texts in Surah 34:12. It seems, however, Ornias isn't going down without a fight. He pleads and begs Solomon if he lets him go, he'll bring him the king of the demons. Not giving those empty words any thought, Solomon prayed that the Lord would send Uriel to come and succor him. Succor is defined as a noun or verb. It means help. Also, forthwith is defined as an adjective. It means immediately. In his keys, Solomon gives detailed instructions on how to conjure angels. So Solomon prayed that the Lord would send Uriel to help him get some act right from Ornias, and immediately he saw Uriel come to his rescue. I'd like to take a few moments to discuss the order of the heavenly hosts that abide in the heavenly realms, beginning with the lowest and ending with the highest. 1. Guardian angels. 2. Archangels. 3. Principalities or princes. 4. Powers. 5. Virtues. 6. Dominions. 7. Cherubim. 8. Seraphim. I find this handy when studying texts like these. It also connects the dots with Ephesians 6:12. For we are not contending against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Wow, I could stay there forever. So let's move on to verse 12. All right. And the angel bade the whales of the sea come out of the abyss, and he cast his destiny upon the ground, and that destiny made subject to him the great demon and bold Ornias, to cut stones at the temple. And accordingly, I, Solomon, glorified the God of heaven and earth, and maker of earth. And he bade Ornias come with his destiny, and gave him the seal, saying, Away with thee, and bring me hither the prince of all demons. Breakdown. Oftentimes in legends, our ancestors referred to whales as sea monsters. Webster defines sea monster as a noun, a large or extraordinary sea animal, a fabulous monster of the sea, often represented as man-devouring. According to the Portalist.com, 70% of our oceans are unexplored. That's an incredibly large amount. The other reference I used was Wikipedia, and according to it, sea monsters, and I quote, can take many forms, including dragons, sea serpents, or multi-armed beasts. It goes on to say, and I quote, the definition of a monster is subjective. Further, some sea monsters may have been based on scientifically accepted creatures such as whales and types of giant and colossal squid. There are countless myths, legends, and eyewitness accounts that can be researched online. A few of these examples are the devil whale, Dagon, Hydra, Kraken, Scolia, Sirens, and Leviathan. The text doesn't specify the reason Uriel called these beasts out of hibernation, but the next sentence is quite juicy, because I have a theory of my own about Uriel's destiny. The translator's footnote on this sentence is, he withered up their species and cast his fate to the ground. I couldn't possibly begin to understand what that meant, what that means. However, I can't explain my theory. When Solomon writes destiny upon the ground, I believe he's referring to something likened to the staff of Moses, because Solomon goes on to write, and that destiny made subject to him the great demon and bold Ornias. In Exodus from chapter 4 through chapter 14, Moses and his staff perform many miracles, from the staff becoming a serpent and devouring the magician serpents to the parting of the Red Sea. The Quran also mentions the staff of Moses in surahs 260, 7101, 2080, and 2836. My theory is Uriel's destiny is more technologically advanced than the staff of Moses, kind of like Moses' staff was a reflection of Uriel's destiny, like the moon reflects the sun. The destiny of Uriel has held great power over Ornias. Thus, Uriel bade Ornias come with his destiny. It's also how Uriel was able to command Ornias to bring me hither the prince of all demons. Verse 13. So Ornias took the finger ring and went off to Beelzebul, who has kingship over the demons. He said to him, Hither, Solomon calls thee. But Beelzebul, having heard, said to him, Tell me, who is this Solomon of whom thou speakest to me? Then Ornias threw the ring at the chest of Beelzebul, saying, Solomon the king calls thee. But Beelzebul cried aloud with a mighty voice, and shot out a great burning flame of fire. And he arose and followed Ornias, and came to Solomon. Breakdown of verse 13. I downloaded 2 versions of J. Collin de Planey's Dictionary Infernal to my Google library. The Dictionary Infernal is a demon dictionary that de Planey wrote in 1844 in French. The other version I downloaded is a condensed English version with illustration. Both versions were free. Beelzebub is depicted as the 18th demon in de Planey's illustrated version. De Planey has quite a bit of information on this demon compared to the rest of his book, so I picked out quotes that I felt relevant to this text. First quote. According to Milton, he is foremost in power and crime after Satan. Second quote. Supreme chief of the infernal empire, according to most demonographers. Third quote. His name signifies Lord of the Flies. Fourth quote. Most referred god of the Canaanites, who sometimes represented him with the figure of a fly, more often with attributes of a sovereign power. Fifth quote. When he is angry, one swears that he breathed fire and howled like a wolf. This dictionary was very helpful, and I know it will be of great value throughout Solomon's testament. I found it quite interesting that Beelzebub had heard about their enslavement to Solomon prior to Ornias showing up. He is said to be of royalty, even if it's of the demonic type. Ornias showed his true self by his total lack of respect toward his prince. Not only did he demand a thing from Beelzebub, but he didn't have the decency to answer Beelzebub's question. Naturally, Beelzebub is irate, and not just because his inferior is treating him with such disdain. He's being forced to pay homage to a human king, but in the end he follows Ornias to Solomon. Verse 14. And when I saw the prince of demons, I glorified the Lord God, maker of heaven and earth, and I said, Blessed art thou, Lord God Almighty, who hast given to Solomon thy servant wisdom, the assessor of the wise, and hast subjected unto him all the power of the devil. Breakdown. This time Solomon includes a beautiful recitation of the prayer that he prayed to the Lord the instant he laid eyes on Beelzebub. One thing I love doing when I run across a prayer I admire is writing that prayer down and then making it my own, like this. Blessed art thou, Lord God Almighty, who hast given Christy your servant a mind to understand and a mouth to teach what you have put into my heart. All the glory, honor, and praise belong to you until the ages of the ages. I am the first to submit. Amen. It helps me not to be redundant when praying, and it expands my imagination when trying to develop new prayers. Another thing, the Lord loves to be thanked and nothing at the Lord loves it when you thank him and ask nothing of him. Verse 15. And I questioned him and said, Who art thou? The demon replied, I am Beelzebub, the exarch of the demons, and all the demons have their chief seats close to me, and I it is who make manifest the operation of each demon. And he promised to bring me in bonds all the unclean spirits. And I again glorified the God of heaven and earth, as I do always give thanks to him. Breakdown. Exarch is a noun, a governor or of a country or a province who rules as the representative of a king or sovereign. Beelzebub is saying that he's not the top dog, but he does represent the king. He goes into more detail by explaining that only the higher ranking demons socialize with him. Manifest is a verb. It means to make certain by showing or displaying. Apparition is a noun, an unusual or unexpected sight, a ghostly figure. It's clear that Beelzebub is a good leader because he knows when and who and how to submit. This is evident because he continued on by explaining that he was the demon who can display any demon in an unusual, unexpected, or ghostly figure. Solomon gives a consistent example to always glorify the Creator, and he never forgets the title or name that follows God. Every time I see Maker of heaven and earth, I can't help but be reminded of the surahs that proclaim how beautiful Allah's names are, specifically 7:180, 17:110, 10:28. But the surah that is closely related to this topic is 59:24. He is Allah, the Creator, the Maker, the Fashioner. Unto him belong the most beautiful names. Whatsoever is in the heavens and the earth glorifies him, and he is the mighty, the wise. I love that verse, or that surah. Verse 16. I then asked of the demon if there were females among them. And when he told me that there were, I said that I desired to see them. So Beelzebub went off at high speed and brought unto me Onosocolus, who had a very pretty shape and the skin of a fair-hued woman, and she tossed her head. Breakdown of verse 16. Leave it to Solomon to ask if there are female demons, which of course he already knew because Michael told him. Onosocolus means she who has ass's legs. So how Solomon could think that she had a very pretty shape makes me wonder about his taste in women. I couldn't find the name Onosocolus in either version of the Plain's Dictionary. I did, however, discover that she's in the French version under her male counterpart by the name Impuce. The feminine to Impuce is Impusa. A couple of quotes from the French version are, first quote, takes various forms of dog, of woman, of ox, of father who has the atrocious look, a donkey's foot, and a brazen foot, a flame around his head, and who only seeks to do harm. Second quote, it is even said in Russia that the Impuce and the midday demons who are subject to this horrible phantom sometimes run the streets at midday in widows' clothes and break the arms of those who dare to look them in the face. Solomon wrote that this demon had fair-hued skin, and that validates the Russian account in the Plain's Dictionary, because Russians are fair-complected. Onosocolus lived up to her name by doing what mules and horses do, by tossing her head. Verse 17. And when she was come, I said to her, Tell me, who art thou? And she said to me, I am Onosocolus, a spirit wrought. And then there's a gap there, lurking upon the earth. There is a golden cave where I lie, but I have a place that ever shifts. And at one time I strangle men with a noose, at another I creep up from nature to the arms. But my most frequent dwelling places are the precipices, caves, ravines. Oftentimes, however, do I consort with men in the semblance of a woman, and above all with those of a dark skin, for they share my star with me, since they it is who privily or openly worship my star without knowing that they harm themselves, and whet my appetite for further mischief. For they wish to provide money by means of memory, but I supply a little to those who worship me fairly. Breakdown. The translator's footnote about the second sentence makes sense and backs up the Russian's account in the Plain's Dictionary. My name is Onosocolus. I am a spirit which has been made into a body. I googled golden caves, and Wikipedia has a fascinating definition on Agamas Cave. Located in southern Africa, this cave is home to the endangered cavefish. There isn't much information on this or the other caves in the region because the locals don't want those caves disturbed. Of course, it's logical to assume where there's fish, there's a body of water. Once again, the translator's footnote about the next sentence doesn't sound right to me. I have a many-sided character. The answer that I got from oceanservice.noaa.gov is so obvious it slaps you in the face. The place that ever shifts is the surface or crust of the earth. This is a quote. Tectonic shift is the movement of the planet that makes up Earth's crust. Another quote is this. Our planet looks very different from the way it did 250 million years ago, when there was only one continent called Pangaea and one ocean called Pathalaisa. Then this is my last quote. The huge continent eventually broke apart, creating new and ever-changing land masses and oceans. Have you ever noticed how the east coast of South America looks like it would fit neatly into the west coast of Africa? That's because it did. The next part that states she strangles men with a noose brought up sleep paralysis again. This time it was a different writer, website, and story. The one similarity, the feeling that someone is there causing it to happen. SBS.com.au did a great job detailing several accounts, as well as has quotes from doctors sprinkled with a little history. First quote: "The myth of a nocturnal demon stalking us in our sleep dates back to at least medieval times." End quote. And then a beginning of another quote. "According to Professor David Hillman, 20% of people will experience sleep paralysis at least once in their lifetime." End quote. The writer Ruby Hammond injected her own experience. This is a quote that she wrote. "As someone who suffered sleep paralysis on and off for more than a decade, I have a long list of wild hallucinations, including being violently choked, feeling someone breathing in my ear, and being watched by a malevolent figure standing in the corner of my bedroom. I also imagined a human-like presence was trying to, well, get into my pajamas. I felt pressure not only on my chest, but I also felt it all over my body, as if someone were laying on top of me, pressing me into the mattress." End quote. Demons that like to have sex with humans are called incubus, male, and succubus, female. The oldest reference of an incubus is dated 2400 BC. Gilgamesh's dad was an incubus who had sex with his human mother, and from that came the famous Gilgamesh. The article concludes with the strong statement that narcolepsy, a condition where a person falls asleep quickly without warning, and hypersomnia, I can't pronounce that, is a condition where one suffers from excessive daytime sleepiness, are strongly related to sleep paralysis. I want to end this topic with two statements. Number one, if Ornias and Onisocolis can change into the form of a female to seduce males, then they can change into a male to seduce females. Number two, I don't believe any of those conditions are imagined. That person experiencing those things knows what it feels like to their body and senses. What makes any doctor an authority to label these and other supernatural experiences as conditions, hallucinations, or say this person is imagining it? No amount of schooling can prepare you for a demonic attack. Because the doctor, okay. Just because the doctor or anybody, it doesn't matter if it's a doctor or not, just because they can't see it, feel it, or hear it, doesn't mean that it's not there, that it's not happening to that person, because it is. And we'll find out. We'll find out a lot more later with the next demon that's coming up. Okay. In her next confession, Onisocolis states, "I creep up from nature to the arms. This type of demonic attack I'm all too familiar with. Wikipedia defines this as formication, the sensation that resembles that of small insects crawling on or under the skin when there is nothing there." I didn't look any further into this type of demonic attack because this happened to me several times as a child. It always happened at an odd hour in the early morning. I would wake up startled, and then I would see these cockroaches with super long legs just crawling all over my body. I know that every time I was awake because I saw my bedroom like it was, everything in its place, my sister in her bed next to mine, and my foster mom standing in the bedroom doorway calmly telling me to wake up, and every time I would respond hysterically that I was awake. Then, as quickly as a blink, the roaches would vanish, just like that. Every time, knowing what I know now, no one could ever convince me that what I was experiencing was a dream or hallucination. It was very real. I was a victim of demonic attacks, but now I'm a survivor. Precipitous as a noun is defined as a very steep rock frame or cliff, especially a tall one. So this demon frequented steep rock cliffs, caves, and ravines. She prefers rocky, wet, and isolated areas. Consort is a noun, a spouse, companion, or partner. She would change into a female form and have sex with men, especially men that have dark skin. Apparently, when these men who privily or openly worship her star motivates her to create mischief. She's vain because she gets a rise when her worshippers provide money by means of commemorating her. Then she thinks she's being gracious by supplying a little to those who worship me unfairly. Verse 18. And I Solomon questioned her about her birth, and she replied, I was born of a voice untimely, the so-called echo of a man's orchard, dropped in a wood. Breakdown of verse 18. An ordure, however you want to pronounce it, noun. Waste matter, discharged from the body, something that is morally degrading. The footnote for this verse is, I was generated from an unexpected voice, which is called a voice of the echo of a black heaven, emitted into a matter, meaning uncertain. Okay, that was like and what was in parentheses. The meaning is uncertain. They don't understand it. So I'm not sure what that means, but I do have another theory of my own. My theory is this: she was spoken into existence. Whoever or whatever did that was speaking about something that is morally degrading. Speaking about or doing something that's morally degrading, I should say. And that's how she came into being. I might be wrong, but my assumption makes more sense than the footnote. Going back to speaking things into existence, in Proverbs 18:21, Solomon writes, "Death and life are in the tongue. Those who make it a friend shall eat of its fruit." What he's saying is this: everything we say, negative and positive, the universe has to absorb. Right? The universe cannot argue with itself, nor can it argue with energy. Whatever we put out into the universe will come back to us. Taking this a little further, the commandment, thou shalt not kill, doesn't just mean in a physical sense. I have the power to kill someone's conscience, morals, spirit, and self-esteem. But at the same time, with my words, I can give someone's conscience, morals, spirit, and self-esteem life. That's why James warned believers in his letter about bridling the tongue. If we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we also guide their whole bodies. It is the same with ships. Even though they are so large and driven by fierce winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot's inclination wishes. In the same way, the tongue is a small member and yet has great pretensions. James 3:3-5. Pretension is a noun, a claim or assertion of a claim to something. In other words, quoting my husband, it can say things that can really rock the room. And I want to add here, I know somebody who actually spoke something into existence, and I'm not going to put her name out there because I didn't discuss this with her before I put this episode out. And I'm not going to overstep my boundaries with her like that. She's been a really, really good friend to me, one of my best friends that I can actually honestly say is a best friend. She has 3 girls, and for when I first met her, she didn't have her children. The state of Louisiana had revoked her rights as a parent, and the children had been adopted out. When she went to treatment, she called who is now her ex-husband. At the time, it was her husband. She was trying to work things out with him, and she was saying, I'm going to get our girls back. And he would say, you can't get them back. They're gone. And she would never leave that in the universe. She would never leave that in the universe. She always followed up with, no, I'm going to. And of course, now they're divorced for about 3 or 4 years. She's been clean for 4 years. I'm super proud of her. Right before Mother's Day this past year, she got a call from CPS. The adoption didn't work out. And the CPS caseworker pretty much stalked her online, found out that she was clean and sober for 4 years, found out how stable she was, and she got her kids back. And she's with them now. And her new husband has or is, or I'm not even going to put that out there because I don't want to cause any waves. But they've got the perfect Leave It to Beaver life, I'm sure. And I'm so super proud of her. And I know that she's very, very happy. And she deserves it. She absolutely deserves it. And she is the one example that I have that I can give to people when I talk to them about speaking things into existence and how the universe was created with energy, and we all are energy beings. Our souls are energy, and so what we speak, it has power. Our energy has power. Our words have power. Our thoughts have power, but not like our words. She really she did that thing. So I'm super, super proud of her, and she knows who I'm talking about. I love you, girl. All right, moving on, verse 19. And I said to her, under what star dost thou pass? And she answered me, under the star of the full moon, for that reason that the moon travels over most things. Then I said to her, and what angel is it that thou frustrates thee? And she said to me, he that in thee is reigning. And I thought that she mocked me, and bade a soldier strike her. But she cried aloud and said, I am subjected to thee, O king, by the wisdom of God given to thee, and by the angel Joel. Breakdown. What Anasakeles is saying is the astrological sign that she is ruled by is Libra, because Venus is the planet or star that rules Libra. Libra rules September 23rd through October 22nd. Libra is the 7th astrological sign in the zodiac. I'm a Libra. It took me a little digging to find a non-religious viewpoint on the angel Joel. Angels/Geronimo.blogspot.com is where I discovered why Anasakalus answered Solomon with, "He that in thee is reigning." If one was to study the greater and lesser keys with Solomon, said person would discover the holy and unmentionable names of the Lord. One of those names are El, which is capital E, capital L, or L, capital E, lowercase l, and that just so happens to be a name associated with Joel. Having said that, I believe this demon was playing on Solomon's pride by crying aloud and saying, "I am subjected to thee, O king," before she could be struck. Of course, getting hit would hurt because she's in a physical form, but I don't think that's the only reason she cried aloud. She wanted to assure Solomon felt secure in the thought that these demons could not lie to him once he began their interrogation. That's one of my many theories anyway. Okay, verse 20. Yeah, we can go to verse 20 and then have to stop at 21. Okay, verse 20. The only rope that was, verse 20. So I commanded her to spin the hemp for the ropes used in the building of the house of God. And accordingly, when I had sealed and bound her, she was so overcome and brought to naught as to stand night and day spinning the hemp. Breakdown of this verse. The only rope that was used in the temple was the one that was tied to the high priest's ankle just in case he dropped dead in the Holy of Holies. Now, the question is, how much rope was used for building the temple? I have no idea, and after trying to find it online for 30 minutes, the only thing remotely similar to this article is titled "Holy Smoke, Ancient Israelites Used Cannabis as Temple Offering. Study Finds," posted by HAARETZ.com. Even though I find it fascinating that researchers discovered weed and